Hi guys, so I've decided to start incorporating voice audio into my videos. Anybody that's been following my stuff for the past 8 or 9 months will know that I don't usually talk in my videos, so this is a first for me. So I mean, both of us, you and myself, are gonna have to bear with it because, you know, I'm not terribly experienced in these things. That said, I'd like to take the opportunity to reintroduce myself as not just a content creator, but, you know, like as a person, and briefly touch upon like my thoughts about the game in its current state, how I feel about ToF. Hi, I'm Fenton. My channel started off as me being free to play, going around soloing raids and JOs and bosses, and we're basically just like gaming montages. I feel like I can provide a decently relatable perspective for doing what I do, because honestly, like, my account in total I think is only worth about like $600. So I specialize in being able to do what I do with a limited investment point, and being able to do stuff in that investment point that usually requires like a much higher point of investment. So moving forward, I'd like to be able to do the same kind of content, but teaching people how to do it, like adding actual commentary, going about like my thought process towards like why I behave in a certain way during a raid, or like what I do, and maybe try to get other people to realize that you don't have to spend that much on the game to be relevant. You just have to be able to invest to a certain amount to keep yourself within what you need to be able to do like all of that stuff. Right, before I keep going and move on to like the other stuff, I'd like to take the time to thank the people that have helped me get this far. So personally, I'd like to thank like a few people like Jodmal, Eileen, Khan, who've at one point or another all helped monetarily with my account progression. I would never have been able to do the kind of stuff that I do without their support. So, you know, personally, to all three of you, thank you so much, and thank you to everybody else that's been following my stuff. Alright, so with that out of the way, let's talk about the state of the game. So, SSRs. I feel like the current iteration of weapons, post 3.0, are actually like a very good design, right? Because they require much lower points of investment for people to be relevant with the weapon, and that's great. That's good for everybody. That's good for your free players, that's good for your dolphins, that's good for your whales. Well, I mean, the whales would have like A6 regardless, but I mean, it's good for everybody else at a lower investment point. It lets them stay relevant without having to put a hole in their wallets, and that's absolutely fantastic for everybody. One small aside though, I dislike that they're oversimplifying rotations. As for example, like from what we've seen of Mimi, she seems to be a left click bot. So I don't know, maybe this is just a personal thing, but I enjoy like a bit of complexity with the characters. Like, I don't want the rest of the SSR weapon design to simply be optimal at what they do for DPS by just holding down left click, because that's not very engaging gameplay to me. I wish they would actually take the time to make characters that are a little more skill intensive to make gameplay a little more fun. Exploration also, I feel like has been vastly improved. Enjoyed exploration in Domain 9 much more than I did NRs. I absolutely hated NRs. I haven't even finished my NRs exploration because I couldn't be bothered. The map is too big. Points of interest on the map are not clearly seen. Like, you actually have to have an interactive map open to be able to do things expediently. But with Domain 9, that wasn't an issue, since the statues exist. They illuminate all the POIs on the map, and you can just go about the map at your leisure, and it becomes more of a question of like, how do I do this exploration point, or how do I get here, and not actually having to comb through the map looking for these things, which I think is an excellent way to design your maps and to do exploration moving forward, right? Events have also been more generous, so that's great. That's fantastic. More free resources for everyone is not a bad thing. My main gripe about the game, though, is like the lack of horizontal progression, right? Because ToF is not very good at incorporating horizontal progression into its systems. A few cosmetics and whatnot exist within the game, like usually like the headpieces or the face pieces, right? Like you can grind those by doing world bosses, but I don't feel like the costume gotchas need to be put up as an actual gotcha, because you could use that, or you could use those to incentivize people to actually play your game. Because when you really think about it, like who is actually spending money on the costume gotchas and the mount gotchas, right? Like just the whales for the leviathans. Like obviously things cost money, but there's already so much spending that you have to do in terms of all the stuff that leads to vertical progression, like getting a better weapon or getting better matrices. Like those are things that you spend money on that actually affect gameplay. Costumes and mounts don't fall under that category, so I don't feel like they should be charged the same amount. If you're going to charge for them, at least put them at a lower spending point, but I feel like the best way to go about like incorporating them into the game would be to simply put them up as like an in-game reward or like an achievement reward, because that would incentivize like your player base to actually play the game more actively. Like they would actually have things to do in the game. Let's be honest, like wiping out your credit card, spending $140 for a cosmetic, it's not an actual event, guys. Like there are actual events that you could be doing to like incentivize people to actively play your game, to actually engage with your game. I feel like mounts could also have fallen under this category, or at least like you could incentivize people to spend money on your mounts if they also contributed to horizontal progression, but in a different way. Guild Wars 2 handles this very well. I actually thought that ToF would follow the same format, or would kind of try to do the same thing based on the jet ski mount that we got in NRs, where it actually has functionality added to it, right? The jet ski mount has a mode where you can use it to traverse while you're on top of water, and it also converts into like an underwater mount, right? And moving forward, like I feel like mount design could have incorporated more elements related to that, where every mount has like a different functionality. That way you can actually incentivize people to pay money for your mounts instead of just like having them pay money for it because it's aesthetically pleasing. There's a reason for you to want the mount, because for example, like what if what if the doggo mount that came with the recent BP lets you jump higher or something like that, right? Like there's a reason for you to want to buy the BP. I feel like that was a missed opportunity for Hada. Like you could have utilized them that way, and you know, like if you put mounts that have actual functionality in the game and put them behind like an achievement or a quest chain, like people would have a reason to play your game instead of just slugging in, doing dailies by, which leads to some pretty stale gameplay, not gonna lie. Like for a very long time I just wasn't really having much fun with ToF pre 3.0, because that was essentially the gameplay loop, right? You log in, you do your dailies, you're done. You log in on the first day of VA, you finish it on day 1, you're done. OW, same thing. You just wait for the difficulty to drop to like an acceptable amount. You log in, you do like a couple floors, log back out. Thing I'd like to talk about is I'm not a very big fan of the artificial gating that comes tied in with some of the progression systems in the game, particularly BR. It just feels like to a certain degree it invalidates player skill when you realize that no matter how well you try to do your rotations and practice them and try to be able to do them perfectly, it's not going to meaningfully affect your probability of clearing the floor as much as getting relevant weapon buffs and getting a Mia buff for that day. And I don't feel like that's very good design for a progression-based system. Like, you should be able to reward player skill more than a random chance at a buff. Because, I mean, that's basically saying chance is more valuable than your actual skill and how much you're practicing your rotations and how well you can do them. If you like the kind of content that I make, please, I'd appreciate it a lot if you guys liked or subbed. And if you'd like to support the kind of stuff that I make, please consider buying me a coffee. There's a link in the video description. It's by no means mandatory. It's not something that you guys need to do. But, I'd appreciate it a lot if you did. But please only do it if you actually have, like, the amount to spare. If you don't, like, it's absolutely unnecessary. You don't have to. That's about all I have to say. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen and for us having this little tete-a-tete. And, I'll see you guys next time. Cheers.